So welcome to the fourth and final video of our playlist designing of a web crawler. So in the previous video we have discussed about how a web crawler traversal occurs when we represent it as a directed graph, whether DFS or BFS. Then we have discussed about URL frontier and how it handles some of the shortcomings of standard graph traversal, BFS traversal in web crawler. Like we introduced certain terms like politeness, how we prioritize URLs and all. So in the previous video we have discussed about them. So in this video, we will be discussing about the remaining sections, which is the number 3, 4, 5 and 6. So let's dive into the video with each of the details mentioned here. So our first topic for today is HTML downloader. So as the name suggests, it downloads web pages from internet using HTTP protocol. Downloads web pages using HTTP protocol. So in HTML downloader, there is a protocol, specific protocol it follows before downloading a particular web page, which is termed as robots exclusion protocol. So what is this? So basically a web page has a robots.txt file, and this file, this is a standard communication between a web page and a web crawler. So this file basically directs the web page which hyperlinks to exclude from that particular web page, or which things that web crawler is actually allowed to download from that web page. So if we write down the basic characteristics, so this is a standard communication between web crawler and web page. And how do we actually use its entries? So before crawling a website, the crawler should check this robots.txt file. And follow the rules. So according to rules, let's say certain in a page, let's say I have, this is my host page or host server, and I have various hyperlinks present in that page only. Let's say 1, let's say 2, and this is like, let's say accounts, and like that various hyperlinks are present. And in my robots.txt file, I have certain rules like, so disallow abc.com/1, abc.com/2. So what our web crawler will do is, like when it visits the abc.com page and downloads that page, now it extracts the URLs. Before extracting the URL, or before going to in details of that page, it will check the robots.txt file, and since these two hyperlinks are disallowed, so it will not include these hyperlinks in its URL frontier, or rather in its further download procedures. So these two hyperlinks will be ignored by our web crawler. And another thing is, like for efficient management of this robot.txt, or efficient reading of this robot.txt, so to avoid every time downloading robot.txt file, we cache the results of the file, cache the results of the file, right? So two main features of this robot.txt is like it only applies to the URL under the domain and subdomain where it resides, not directly to the hyperlinks, or not directly to some other URLs which are of different domain, which is hyperlinked or which is linked from this domain. So basically I'll explain with an example. So like suppose I have abc.com and it has certain rules. It has this, it's robot.txt file, and in abc.com there is certain, let's say, hyperlinks present, and also there is a hyperlink which is a different domain, let's say efg.com. So this robots.txt file will have the rules for this page only. So it will have rules whether to go to this page or not, or this page or not, or this page or not. But the rules corresponding to this page will be present in efg.com slash robots.txt. It would have its own robots.txt file. Whereas these hyperlinks do not have itself their own txt files. These are basically controlled by its domain or the host, that is the abc.com. So this is a basic understanding or basic knowledge you can have about robots.txt file. So this is the robots exclusion protocol, which we just discussed now for HTML downloader. So another thing which we will discuss is for HTML downloader only, it's the performance optimization. Yes. So for performance optimization, we follow certain characteristics of certain procedures. So one is like distributed crawl. So in this, what we do is, we for high performance, the crawl jobs are distributed in multiple HTML downloader servers. So URL Frontier, what it does, it distributes the URL. So it is basically a data structure which holds the URLs to be downloaded, and it distributes the URLs to multiple servers. So like this, the URLs are distributed, and these are my HTML downloader servers, and each server has a subset of URLs, and then along with that, each server has its own number of threads, which helps to download the web pages. So this is one method which we can optimize our performance by distributing the loads among multiple servers and thereby enhancing or fastening the process of URL downloads. Another thing is like we can do is cache DNS resolver. So what this basically says is like, so HTML downloader will have the URLs, so it no need to go to the DNS resolver to get the IP address and thereby connect with that web page to download the content. So DNS resolver actually, it acts like a bottleneck for crawlers. But why? So it happens to be like DNS resolver bottleneck to crawlers. But why this is? Why such a situation? So basically, DNS resolver may take time due to the synchronous nature of many DNS resolvers. So this is because of the synchronous nature of DNS resolvers. So what do we mean by synchronous nature? So if a thread, suppose let's say, requests for a DNS resolve for a particular URL, so if it is in a synchronous nature, so if what happens is like all other tasks or the thread, all the processes related to that thread are blocked, and until the query is complete, and once the query is complete, then all the processes, all the other tasks are now resumed. So this, as you can see, this method incurs a huge latency or delay in other threads processes. So this is one of the bottleneck, and it has also been seen that DNS resolvers response time varies from 10 milliseconds to 200 milliseconds. So one solution for this is we cache the DNS resolvers response, cache DNS resolvers response. So we can have a mapping of like domain name and the IP address in the cache, which can help us with the fast input output directly from the memory. Domain name of the, what is the mapping? Domain name and the IP address. Yes. So this is one thing which we can do, cache the results of the DNS response. and also update the IP addresses periodically using cron jobs. We can do that also. So in this way we can optimize the performance of our HTML downloader. So these two things. Another is like locality. So for higher availability, higher scalability, what we can do is distribute crawl servers globally. So what will happen now is like crawl servers are closer to the host, so the download will be much faster. So this is one thing, and another is like short wait time. So let's say a web crawler is waiting for a longer time from a web page to get response, and the response is not happening. So we can do is we can specify a predefined time after which the crawler stops the job of that for that web page if no response. Got it? So these are some of the methods which we can follow to optimize. So basically short wait time, locality, cache DNS resolvers response, and this distributed crawl. These certain features which we can use to optimize the performance of our HTML downloader. So in the next section which we'll be looking at is the robustness. So as the name suggests, how we can maintain a highly scalable, highly available web crawler design or web crawler system. So for that, first thing is like we can use is consistent hashing. So for this, what we get the benefit of using consistent hashing is like we can evenly distribute the URLs or the load over the servers. This is one benefit. Another is like we can easily add or remove servers depending on the load. So you can watch my video about inconsistency resolution in the playlist Designer Key Value Store to know more about this consistent hashing, how it actually works. So it has two benefits. One is it helps to evenly distribute the load among the servers easily, and we can also easily add or remove the servers depending on the load. Another is like we save crawl states and data. So we actually do this. So we save the crawl states and its data in a storage system. So suppose the crawler is down for a reasonable amount of time or due to certain unwanted methods and all, the crawler is down. So what we can do is we reload the disrupted crawler using these saved states and this data, and again resume the performance from where it stopped. So the third is exception handling. So we need to efficiently handle the exception, and by exception handling we means we report the errors to the particular user or the system about why this particular thing failed and not. So we have to do that also. And another is data validation. So combining all these things, we can have a robust web design of a web crawler. This consistent hashing, this saving the crawler states and data exception handling and data validation. So the fifth and the second last topic of today's discussion is extensibility. So if you remember in the first lecture, we discussed these terms like scalability, extensibility, politeness and all. So what does extensibility denote? It denotes like our crawler is currently dealing with HTML content, right? So it should be flexible to support new content like PNG or PDF apart from that HTML content with minimal changes in our design. So this is an extensibility feature. So to write it down, crawler should be flexible to support new content like PDF or PNG apart from HTML with minimal changes. So if we give a high level design of how this thing can work in a designing of a web crawler. So if you remember the high level design, so we had this seed URL frontier, HTML downloader, then content seen or not, and all those things. So suppose we have this content seen stage, we are at this content seen stage, and it checks with the content storage whether this HTML page has been visited or not. So here we had initially our link extractor. Once the pages has been checked whether it's a repetition or not, then we extract the hyperlinks from their web pages. So in this stage only, what we can do is we can also extract the images using a PNG downloader. Also we can include our web monitoring service here. Just a second. Web monitoring service to check whether there is a trademark issue or copyright infringements and all. So we can include these two things in this stage only, and thereby proceed with the further download methods. So this basically what it does is, as the name suggests, it downloads the PNG files from the web page, and it checks for web monitoring, checks for copyright or trademark infringements. So this is how the extensibility can be handled in our design. And the final thing which of our today's video is detect and avoid harmful content. So what does this thing denote is like, how do we handle with the redundant or meaningless or harmful content which we encounter while downloading web pages or hyperlinks and all. So it has been found out that for redundant content, so 30% of the web pages, it has been found out in a survey, or that the 30% of the web pages are duplicates. %30 of web pages are duplicates. Yeah. So how we can detect them? We use a checksum, or let's say we use hashing to detect them, to detect the redundant web pages. So another thing is like, after this redundant content, there is another term called spider traps. So what is spider trap? What it does is makes the crawler goes in an infinite loop. The URL is such that the crawler will be stuck in an infinite loop. Spider trap causes a crawler to be stuck in an infinite loop. So workaround for this thing is like, we can avoid spider traps by setting a maximal length of URL, and another thing is like manually identify a spider trap. So avoid by setting a maximal length of URL, but this is not a one-stop solution or a good solution to handle the spider traps. Generally, it has been found out that spider traps can be easily detected manually, so and is human detectable. So you can manually detect the spider traps and then, let's say, put it into our robot.txt file, or discard those URLs or remove those URLs from the web page. And finally, the last thing is like, what we can do is data noise. Let's say our web page has various advertisements or spam URLs or code snippets which are not our use case or not something which we are interested of. So we can exclude those contents while downloading, or after downloading we can exclude those contents to be stored for our future analysis or future use cases. So data noise is like advertisements or code snippets or spam URLs, these things are of little or no value, so exclude these contents. So in this way we can handle the situations of redundancy, or one is redundant or meaningless or spam URLs. So in this video we saw the remaining 4 sections which we introduced in the beginning of our video. So yes, so this brings us to the end of this designing of a web crawler. So basically designing of web crawler is a vast topic and it can go in any direction. Discuss with your interviewer how you do want to design, how the interviewer expects you to design a web crawler, and you can read more about designing of a web crawler in various aspects and read more about them. I'll post some links in the description section. So thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in another playlist in another new video. Stay tuned.